welcome more questions and more dialogues on between. This is not a line between here. Actually, we are welcome any kinds of discussions and comments later on. So over to you, Patrick. Thank you so much.
So yes, I'm glad to have these. Seems to be a round-up sections, and so that we can digest things from the previous sections and carry them forwards to these sections. I'm glad to be a moderator here. And but how to start the dialogue is a difficult question. And of course there is no line between online there or offline here. So we are on the same level, and so that would be welcome for submitting or raising your hands if you have questions while listening to the elaborations and discussions of the two speakers. Maybe I suggest I give you each of the speaker and suggest some of the topics, key concepts you have listened to the yesterday evening or the morning and afternoon sections. Perhaps you already get one or two points which may impress you, or you think that these topics would be quite important for us to discussing whether or how the community can work together, no matter online or offline, work towards a culture of archiving. How can we do that? If this is one of the questions we would like to do or answer, what kind of topics or concept you would contribute in these sections? I just maybe have 1 minute for each to have some reflections, and perhaps we can base on these your reflections so that we can carry forward what's next. Would you, any, Dr. Lam or Kevin or Veerle would like to start?
I think when I first arrived here, my first question is, in my mind, I've been thinking for a long time, is whether, what's at stake for you all as a theatre scene, like what do you want to, how would you like to historicize your own sort of trajectory, how the theatre history, so to speak, or performance history? Because for me, that's always been my concern in Singapore, because we don't have, first and foremost, we don't have like this big book, history book about Singapore theatre. We have always struggled with this question of what is Singapore theatre. So do we include theatre that was pre-independence during when it was a British colony? Or do we also include like the 2 years when we were part of Malaya? So is that still considered Singapore theatre, or do we follow the state narrative where everything sort of happened only post 1965 when we gained independence? But even then, there was a question of, okay, should we just document or should we just only pay attention to English language theatre or about Mandarin? But then that's too neat a categorization where, okay, English theatre is this, Mandarin theatre is this, Malay theatre is this. But in history, if you look through the documents, the documentation or the records, a lot of theatres, at least in the 19th century, were already mixing and hybridized. They were like, there's a particular form called Bangsawan, which had Chinese managers, like stage managers. They are Chinese, but they hire islanders from Java to come and perform. Their texts are spoken in Bahasa Malay, but their stage design is actually based on the English Victorian stage design. So there's this whole kind of mixture. So I just wonder if you were to kind of create your own sort of performance archive or theatre archive, what would that look like and what would that be?
Yes, I would like to, how do you say it in English? I completely agree on what you say. And I think it's important for for Hong Kong to indeed reflect on that matter and to enter into dialogue with amongst you all in the arts field on what do we think is important to keep, how do we want to be memorized in the future. This dialogue is so important, and reflection also, and based on these conversations, you can think of a sort of strategy on how to move forward. And I think lots of ideas have been launched during these days, and I think you really can just pick out the models that could suit you as an arts scene in Hong Kong, and a heritage scene also, of course, and that you also built bridges between those two worlds. And of course, I just say this now, but I realize how complex it is because I've been there. Like 10 years ago, we started this same dialogue. But I think it's a bit comparable, actually. Belgium is not so big. Hong Kong is, I don't know the surface, actually, but number of people is far bigger than Flanders. But just, I would like to inspire you to enter into dialogue and to reflection on these matters, what you said.
If I put it in a more extreme way, I think these here you two raise an interesting topic for us to consider. Alvin, you used the term historicize. I believe that means the sense of purposes to make an archive is to contribute something bigger, so that we may have a broader, wider social and cultural context to make meanings and make the archive valuable for the future. I think this is a quite noble missions for people working in this field. If this is one stand of the argument, we probably on the ground we have another extreme or different opinions. We are asked for some functional purpose. My boss asked me to keep something. I need to keep the press release so that I can retrieve the information. So we are dragged to a lot of routine functional necessity so that we can keep something. It seems to me it could be a very long way from these functionality to the noble visions. I'm not sure whether people working in the arts sector, performing arts sector, whether you have such kind of conflicts or dilemma, whether I meet the daily life needs, functional needs, or I have a more motivational freedom to pursue a bigger goals, which stand wins or take reference over others. I would like to invite your contributions to this topic and let the speaker know what's the actual cases in Hong Kong, whether practitioners encounter different sorts of problems or issues on the ground. Is it possible for me to do that?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Any special case, or our case of IATC should be the one of the examples that I could share here. And what I'm just thinking about Alvin's, it's not a question, but I think it's a kind of sharing to let you know our work, what we have did before, and obviously what Patrick just mentioned about, I'm also thinking about to juggle between two ends. And of course, another aspects that I will think about is because we're talking about a lot of language, in particular for Alvin's presentation. There's 4 languages in the website, and of course, because the main idea and the concept of building up that particular platform is for the intercultural interaction, and also, so your purpose is very clear. But I'm just thinking about IATC. One of our projects is for the yearbook, and in particular for the drama yearbook, we only have the traditional Chinese version, and of course we don't have the budget for the translation to English. But on the other hand, we also have the criteria of selecting the original source of the leaflets or the production is in traditional Chinese, and we may not have, not every one of those will have official English translation, so we keep the original traditional Chinese information. That's what we are intended to do. But what I'm thinking about is aroused by your presentation and also Patrick's questions also, is because I'm imagining our audience and our reader, and if I only provide the service or to keep the history of the drama in Hong Kong just for the purpose of serving our local readers, that's fine, because there's enough for that particular platform in one single language. But if I think further, the question is, if someone would like to know more about our history, and this in a bigger context, of course, then language will create a problem or barriers of people to know about our history, and that brings to another levels that I will brings to another aspect that I will think about is if we would like to make Hong Kong kind of visible. That visibility is something. Of course, I'm more concerning right now because in this particular special moment, how can we make our noise more visible in the international context? Then language, it becomes a really big problem. But at the same time, because language is something really, really delicate and also really complicated in a sense, so it's not easily translated. Of course, what yearbook is doing is relatively easier because it's just containing, it just some static information. It's not like as complicated as your the whole website. So what I'm thinking also in this particular context here is also how we are going to imagine our reader, and those readers are not only for the readers right now, but also the reader in the future that will bring me to think about what kind of things or how it should be documented. So it is something that my response at this moment.
Can I comment on that? I see, of course, the importance of having the yearbook. I think it's a fantastic instrument to document everything that happens that year. But I also think if reacting on the language issue and reacting on the fact how do we need to open up, I really believe in the Wikimedia platforms. Because what we saw up until now, for example, is that companies or cultural centers that receive productions, they produce such an amount of information. They write biographies of the choreographer that comes, of the costume designer that comes, and they publish it on their website. And then the production travels, and another festival creates information above the existing information. And that's why we collaborated with an arts institute that published all their information on Wikipedia. And all the information on the productions, on the artists that passed by, that passed in their institution. And another supporting arts organization, I don't know if you have this, but they have a database with all the data per performance, per artist, per company, and they integrated all this data in the Wikidata platform. Whereas, and following, I'm sorry, I'm not a Wikipedia specialist, but I know that based on these data, people who are willing to write something on this company can just add base themselves on the information that is already existing in Wikipedia. And also, if you would publish the information of the yearbook on the Wikipedia pages, maybe there is some volunteer that spontaneously starts to translate one article in English because he or she feels that it is important to share with the world. So then it's out of your hands, okay? So you need to, you lose control a bit, but it works. And there's a very broad community that takes a look on the quality because the main reason of Wikipedia that is so much consulted worldwide is that there's a community that keeps an eye on the quality, so it corrects itself. So it might be a suggestion to add all the information and to work as open as possible. If you create new content, just publish it on Wikipedia, or if you make new pictures, do it under the open license where David was talking about, and you can put it immediately on Wikipedia, and then everyone can share and use it within certain license. That would be my suggestion.
And I just quickly build on that, because not so much a suggestion to kind of use Wikipedia. I always tell my students, don't use Wikipedia, don't quote Wikipedia when you're academic essays. But having said that, I think the concept of crowdsourcing is very important. I think that actually opens up, what I mean by crowdsourcing is to, like what Veerle is saying, is to invite people elsewhere to contribute to, let's say, like if you want an inventory to be filled up, if you don't have enough information, then open up, invite someone to contribute information about a specific historical period, about certain productions or certain touring companies that came to Hong Kong, for example. I say this because I think crowdsourcing is very important, or something that my project is also experimenting, is because, and just to kind of link it to my earlier comment about what is at stake for you as as stakeholders of someone who has worked in the theatre scene. If you recognize enough on the ground, there's a consensus that something needs to be done to say to kind of think about your theatre history. I believe there will be enough people who want to come in and contribute, even if it's just like this one paragraph, just to explain. Oh, I don't have this PDF, this program. So, because I noticed this a lot in Singapore, for example, when one of my students wants to do like research into theatre history, he or she doesn't have like information about this production in the 80s. Then we use Facebook to kind of like gather people to kind of quickly, okay, do you have this program from this production? So even if the theatre company already lost that program, someone maybe during the 90s went to watch the program, might still have a copy, and so then immediately you can share resources. So I'm thinking more on kind of a more larger, broader level, think of how you can create an environment where that you can crowdsource, you can ask some people to contribute. Yeah.
Well, any other experience or sharings about your motivation to form an archive or needs to form an archive in your local practice? Any experience to share? And we are also listening to some of the methods or strategies to address the language issues, as well as how to massage the data in order to meet the different profile or demands of the audience. Anything? Yes, sure.
Well, I just heard that like a Wikipedia can be a very useful platform to upload the archive, so that like it's easier for people from other parts of the world to contribute. But I have a question. Then how would you protect the intellectual property right? Then is that a concern when you plan for the digital archive of these performance data? Thank you.
That's a very important aspect of Wikipedia, that it's open. I'm sorry, I'm not a copyright expert, but as far as I know, that's the main existing reason for Wikipedia, that all the information and the images and the data that are published through Wikipedia are open to the public. Because of the limits you have if there are copyrights on all the material. So the main existing reason of Wikipedia is that you let it go, and that everything you publish is free of copyrights. There is the license system, the Creative Commons license system, where you can build in certain limits for images, for example. But that's just the thing, that everything you publish is free and open for everyone. So, but what you upload is not your real archive. You only have the text material or some photos and data, which is information on a certain production, the title, the year, the location, but you don't upload. Yeah, that's the only thing you can upload on the Wikimedia platforms, as far as I know, because I'm not an expert.
Any advice on copyright issues on digital platform? I think the questions could be a little bit more extended if we not just focus on Wikipedia, because when we upload material to YouTube, Facebook, there is a policy whether the company own part of the rights, and that may create some problems for arts organization when they want to reuse their materials.
Yeah, I think from the get-go, you have to be transparent with how you convert like master copy from the companies to an online platform. So YouTube, for example, actually, David is not here, but I actually won't recommend YouTube precisely because YouTube actually kind of, there's a fine print that says the video also belongs to YouTube. So yeah, there's a fine print that says it belongs to YouTube. Right. So at most you can do is like kind of private list it so that it's not searchable. But once it's on the YouTube platform, it kind of belongs to the YouTube platform. So that's why.
YouTube also owns the right?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, not so much as they own it, but because it's on their platform, it's up to them whether they can put it, distribute, leave it there. By distribution, what it means is that it's available to someone else. It's distributed. It appears on the stage engine. It appears on an ad, advertisement. In a way, you don't have much control unless you remove it by yourself. So once it's up there on YouTube, they're very much farming data from your video. So that thing you have to be aware of. So that's why we actually leave a bit of budget to sort of customize open source video players. Just a little bit, because it actually doesn't cost much to customize an open source video player. So what I mean by open source is that actually you can go and download a free software, a video software, that you can just kind of use it and mount it on your website. So WordPress platforms, those kind of free platforms, there's a whole sort of culture there, open source culture there, that you actually could start to kind of do research on. There's a lot of free stuff that you can use. It only becomes expensive when you want to customize to your needs. Then you have to kind of hire a tech company to come in to customize the software to meet your needs. Needs such as like in our case, because we're very transparent with our companies, with the companies, and say that the videos cannot be downloaded. So even YouTube, you can actually find a bootleg software to kind of copy. So that thing you can be aware of. So we have to get these software company to come in to really secure the video players. So there's still some coding involved to secure the frame, the video frame, right? Or situating the video in a separate server so that server cannot be hacked, whereas the website itself is on a different server. That's sort of steps that we have to make in order to secure the video. But I think going back to the Wikipedia platform, it's still worth thinking of. Don't think of performance archive as you definitely need. I know very much from my talk is about video recordings, but it doesn't mean that you need a video recording in order to create a performance archive. I think it's also worth thinking of a performance archive that looks at the history. Or, like, obviously, productions from the 19th century or early 20th century, you're not going to find recordings. So the next best thing is to kind of then find materials. So it actually is to our advantage that we have a 19th century performance archive, because an author that passed away 100 years is free, is within the kind of Creative Commons. You can just use it as it is. So, but what needs more contribution on your part is to kind of create a narrative about this history or this collection.
So which video platform will you recommend, or you just, there's no
But that raises interesting questions. Not theoretically, but practically, actually, we have a lot of free tools to do something, and some tools may be legal in a sense, such as Creative Commons, which help us to solve a lot of problems about licensing and common shared video rights, so and so. We have a lot of tools we can use, and we have a lot of platforms to use too. Wikipedia, we use YouTube to show the video clips. We have Facebook, where somebody will set up page groups so that we can promote events, calendar, and also we upload the activity photos there. So imagine that sort of different types of platforms are actually one of the archives we already developed. We are today not keep the archive in one place, but we keep it in different places. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, maybe our own website. So would it be possible to, when we talk about a community archive for the performing arts, we don't build the platform by themselves, but we just use the third-party platform so that we spend more energy on the integrating information, like Elton said, writing your narrative, presenting your narrative, or data mining, so that we can make sure the data from one platform could be transportable to other channels. Is it possible?
I would like to react on that. It's indeed, it seems a good solution, but it's not, because it's actually,
too bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. On the short term, it seems a good solution, but it's not sustainable at all, because for example, what we notice in our daily practice, for example, the YouTube videos, we have the reactions of the companies that say to us, indeed, we do have an audiovisual archive, because all our promotional videos are on YouTube, so we are in order with we have an audiovisual archive. But then in the end, if you ask, yes, but is it the master copy? Do you have the master copy of the video of the performance? No, that is there, and I don't know. Oh, but he deceased some years ago, so no, we don't even know where his archive is. And the material that is on YouTube is in a very low quality. So it's indeed a good tool to promote your performances, but it's not an archiving tool. And that is indeed a sort of misunderstanding that we first need to make people aware of. Also Facebook, for example, there are tools to archive Facebook pages. Very easy to use tools, even I can do it, so it's very easy. And you can archive websites also, because sometimes people change their websites, and the older website is somewhere on the internet, but when the person that created that website moves to another organization, no one even realizes that there was a former website, but they're very easy to use tools to archive a website and to keep a copy, a very good quality copy of the website, which is a documentation, a very important documentation of the history of your organization, because it says a lot on the time frame and how you used to publish your information and what kinds of information you published in that period. But there are tools to archive these materials. So sorry, it was a very good idea, but but what I would like to suggest is that what we saw in the first phase of all these digital developments, that people started to create their own databases with all these data, with all this information, with all kinds of audiovisual material, and it costs so much money. It costs so much money, so much time, and then in the end you have 100 databases, and they are not even linked to each other, so there's a lot of double information. What I would also suggest is that when you reflect on what you want to keep for the future, also reflect on a sort of what kind of platform would we like to use together. That there's only one entry, and that everything, that it's clear for everyone. If you need information on Hong Kong performing arts heritage, this is the platform, and not this company. Then you have to go to that website, and for audiovisual material you need to go to that website, and photos. That there is another museum that has the photos of performing arts, but not all the photos, because then you know what I mean. So that's what we are encountering now, and it's quite difficult because you can, of course, start thinking of linking all these databases, but it's also very complex. If you need to start, then you can think.
Yeah, I mean, on the issue of copyright, I think Bernice raised this earlier. So when in your copyright permission, that's why I was quite insistent that at the start we really asked for physical copies, not just the recording. We asked for any programs, any scripts that is relevant to those productions, so that on our side we can generate the data. We have some sort of control. So on the one hand, I'm kind of on the fence now, because I'm all open source in a way, but that's software-wise. But content-wise, I think you, as content providers, you need to have some form of control, because you can't just let anyone kind of contribute to the archive. You do need to check, you do need to edit, you need to make sure there are no sort of vulgar comments, for example, on the archive. So there is some control that is needed in terms of at least having a sort of full copies of what is needed to be archived.
So that means we need real archive behind the scene. We have something in front or accessible to the public, but at the same time, we have to spend money, effort, and time to clean up the things behind the scene. Any questions?
Well, not really a question, but we're now discussing about whether we can have different input from public to generate an archive. So I want to bring out an example, which I think very useful, especially when I look at forming a performing art archive. Actually, it's a good reference. Is the IMDb, the International Movie Database. I don't know, maybe a lot of people know about it, because actually the data, the information is provided by people from all around the world. But the problem is you still have to have an editor or archivist, I don't know, who know about it and then who help to set up, for example, what are available, just like Alvin just mentioned, to screen and to put them away, put them in a proper way. So I think would this be an example that we can look at it and how and go back to the problem is what kind of structure or what kind of data which is significant. For example, if in Hong Kong context, what kind of information should be included? Maybe, for example, in the production in a music performance, what should include? What kind of material, what kind of information should be included on this online database, which may be very different from a puppet theater performance. So I think this probably we can think about at this point. I want to raise about this example, and then maybe we can keep on discussing about this.
So there's no performing arts
Yes.
All stage, Australia Stage has a sort of performance database quite similar to IMDb because it does have the basic information. This actor was active between this period, what productions was he appear in. So that could be a sort of easy, not say easy, but like if you don't have performance recordings, then a database is actually a kind of rational first step you can do if you want a performance archive. And All Stage would be a good example.
It's a very good example, I think. So, yeah, definitely take a look at that website. Just to comment on your question, I think it's very important that you look at the international standards. That you always, if you set up something, that you always look at the standards that are used internationally in order to be able to connect to other databases. Because if you develop something on your own, it might be very useful in your local context, but if the goal is also to open up and to make it more public, you need to connect to the international standards. So that's...
I don't wish to complicate this, but it becomes problematic or complex when you include language. So when we search across languages, a standard word in English might not be applicable in, say, Cantonese.
I know.
Yeah, so when we search in this word, it might not appear in a different language. So that's something to consider.
It's very complex. You know, even in between, in my country, in the northern part we speak Dutch, which is actually the same language that they speak in the Netherlands. But even there, if we wanted to collaborate on a certain project, and actually we use different, if we are looking to terminology to describe performing arts materials, even in between Dutch-speaking Belgium and Dutch-speaking the Netherlands, are differences. So it was like, it seemed so obvious that we collaborated, but in the end, it was too complex.
However, I have a puzzle because if we want to keep a standardized or universal database which meets most of the people's use, most of the time these tasks have to be done by the government or inter-government agencies. If we referring to some of these examples they are doing on museum, on national libraries, they can share the database, interlibrary catalog, so that people can search the catalog according to the controlled vocabulary, so that we can impose, you are using author rather than the title creator, you can use work title rather than book title, so and so. We can control the language, so and so. But the assumption or the presumption is these tasks have to be done by some centralized body at a very high level. But on the ground, we are categorizing things on the desk. How come we understand the language? I can't use these verbs, but other. How come? I find it difficult. Just like I'm sitting on the earth and looking at the Mars, it's so remote for me.
Indeed, you need someone, an organization to coordinate. That's what coordination is one aspect, and funding is another aspect. Doesn't need to be the same. It could be, but it doesn't need to be the same. Or you can go, as we were discussing this morning, to more commercial models, like the dance platform in France, Numeri Dance. I was thinking of the name this morning, which is more like a platform that where the companies need to pay a little amount in order to add information, but there is with this amount, it can be coordinated. There are people curating and editing and everything. So this might also be a solution.
Any advice from Alpha? How should we deal with this? Universal standard and local practice. I'm not quite sure how can we bridge the gap on this issue.
I don't know. I don't really have a solution to this, or I actually have stories about this, nightmares. Two specific examples. One, just very simple things like, if it's a collaborative work, I can't use the international standard. I can't use director because there's no director involved in this production. So what we try to do is at least have enough room for sort of editorial note, annotation that kind of explain to someone who is looking at the database that this is a collaborative work. And so I think we have to be flexible and creative when it comes to that. So use the international standards or the categories for your database, but still leave enough room that there's flexibility. Yeah. But that's actually also applicable to when you, what your funders or your legal team, how they think about intellectual property is very different from, because I'm humanities trained or a data practitioner, they don't understand intellectual property in the same way as a lawyer does. So when I talk to the legal team and we look at the copyright form, and they'll ask you like, oh, okay, you want to give them the translated script. Will they use it to then put up a musical in Broadway, or will they go and sell it as DVDs too? Because they're all thinking in terms, so in Singapore, everything is thinking in terms of commercial. It's worth as it's commercial value, but we don't, in the theatre scene, we don't work that way, right? We are friends with our theatre practitioners. When we give copyright permission to us, it's because there's a trust that's really built. So when you speak to them, we have to kind of find a common sort of language for them. But then when you talk to the legal team, you need to shift, you need to change the way you talk, understand their language, and then speak to them in those languages and explain to them that this is going to be used for education and research. So that approach to give them the translation is not because they're going to use it for commercial, because those companies themselves are also funded by the government. So they don't tour because they want to earn a lot of money. Instead, they tour because it's part of art making. They're making art, so they want to then also spread and promote their own sort of practice to the rest of the world. So it's done. So it's just kind of exchange. It's actually a cultural exchange where we provide the scripts to the companies, and the companies provide the recordings to us.
Actually, the work is mainly being a translator, because I'm also thinking of the translation or the communication with the IT experts developing those databases, because they think completely different than an artist, and the artist thinks different than the archivist. So you need. I like the way you emphasize the collaborative aspect of your project, because in between all these parties, you need a translator that really understands all the languages in order to be able to communicate in between the legal specialist and the IT specialist and the archivist and the performer, and because these are different worlds.
How will you give advice to us or the people working who would like to set up their performing arts archive to protect their copyright or intellectual property when they are planning or doing their archives? Would you give them some advice?
Contact specialists. I mean, like experienced people, like Elvin building databases, or people from Offstage, that you don't make the same mistakes, that you can learn from their experience. That would be my advice. Make a sort of advisory board that can build up a strategy together with you. People that already have done all the process, that you can learn from their experience. That would be my advice.
Particularly on the topics copyright, would you share some of your experience, how people can protect copyright from the perspective of archive builders?
We contact a specialist. Yeah, because it's so complex. It's too complex, and we always make the same mistake that we start looking ourselves for how do we need to deal with it, and in the end, we end up with an expert because it's too complex. But indeed, as was mentioned before, we should, if we would have some sort of standard formulas to do so, but every situation is different. But I think there can be some, if you engage new people, for example, if you engage a photographer or someone who makes a recording of your performance and you make an agreement with it, there must be some standard articles in the agreement on the copyrights issue, and I'm sure that must exist already. But
yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you just said. I think this is the same thing for us. We do need to approach. I guess the only thing I would add is that if you approach a specialist, I think there are also specialists who even if they have not really worked within the performing arts industry, but they will understand creative intellectual property, and they have enough knowledge to actually advise you in terms of legal, and they will give you good enough legal advice, especially in Hong Kong. I think the film industry is so huge that you would understand. Although it's very different things, I'm just saying that there should be still people that you can approach. Even a legal professor, in an academic context, would also be able to advise you in terms of how to negotiate copyright.
This is a good idea referring to the film industries, not Hong Kong film industry, in general the international film industry. There is no lack of guidebooks, templates, business contract. We can make reference to the film industries with different types of contract from labor agency as well as licensing. Is it possible, or in your country or in your case, whether you develop a toolkit, documents toolkit, or legal documents toolkits for the performing arts sector, so that they can, if they want to address the labor issues or how to sign a contract with the photographer, they can have basic documents to make reference to. Is it part of
we are actually, there is another organization in the cultural field which is specialized in business-wise advice to the arts field. So it's not our specialty at all, and we are thinking of contacting them in order to make these standard contracts that they can offer to artists especially for regarding copyrights, because I think in European context it's even more complex, or at least completely different than how you deal in Asia with copyright issue.
Maybe, yeah, then no, I think maybe if I explain a bit of Singapore's context, you would maybe, it might actually be quite similar to Hong Kong. I'm not sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in Singapore there's no such sort of outfit or organization that help us. Actors are always being shortchanged because all playwrights are not being paid enough, because they're not even aware, not legally savvy enough to understand the contracts. So, I know a group of people. The thing about Singapore theatre is very funny. A lot of them are actually lawyers, because it's very funny because freelancers, they can't survive on art alone. So a lot of artists can't survive on art alone. So the first kind of, okay, let's play safe. Let's get a law degree first. Let's get a degree that, you know, I can, as a sort of safeguard my future, my career. So meanwhile, then, whilst I'm doing my legal work, I will write a script or I will perform on stage. So what they did, so one friend I know then set up this sort of, he did a public forum where he was giving legal advice on how to safeguard your sort of intellectual property. I'm not saying that Hong Kong should do the same thing, but I'm not sure even if your performers are also lawyers. It just so happened that I'm a very good friend of a theatre director who also was a practicing lawyer for 20 years, but she's also a very established director and performer and travels around for international festivals. So she also did a sort of public forum, and so when I gave her our copyright form and she looked at it and then she said, we need to add in this. And she's put on her legal kind of lawyer kind of hat, and then she actually you add this line to protect the company. Then I think about it. I went back to my legal team. Okay, yeah, I have to add this line to safeguard. So I'm just saying that maybe you have to understand your own scene well and work within, be flexible enough to know what is the needs of your own theatre scene and your own industry, and then come up with solutions. Because I don't think I'm in the position to actually provide solutions for you. But what we did personally is what is very important, at least in Singapore's context, is that you have to establish a sort of relationship with the artists and the practitioners and explain to them why this is important, do more advocacy and promotion, and explain your legal rights is important, intellectual property is important, but so is theatre history, so it's like you want to contribute to this larger understanding of theatre in Singapore, then I think it's multi-pronged approach. You need to kind of address every aspect.
Don't let this demotivate you,
yes.
Because it seems a bit overwhelming, I can imagine, because there are so many different aspects involved if you want to move forward. But that's the reason why I said to please contact people that already been there, done that, and to step by step move forward, but don't let this demotivate you because others already have done it, so it's possible.
So, any yes?
Well, actually, since all you here are performing arts experts, but my experience is in fashion education. So my question is, do you think fashion show, it can be counted as a performing arts? So yeah, that's the question about it. Do you have it? I think it's a kind of terminology thing. So in your field, do you have that kind of definition or something?
For me, definitely yes. Fashion show needs curatorship, right? Strong design input and the theatrical effects we like to create. So that's definitely yes.
Okay.
But how to preserve as an archival items is I think it's a difficult, would involve a lot of difficult steps.
Yeah, it's for me it's also the same. It's a creation process where you have the creative process before, you have the show, and you have the impact on the audience or the reactions of the audience. So for me, it's completely the same as a performance. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean the infrastructure behind when you go to like fashion magazines and look at the recordings of fashion shows, right? You also see the same kind of thing you find in the theater performance, critics, reviews, right? Commentaries, reflections, or even interviews with the model and the designer. What do you? How do you come up with this like kind of design? What are you trying to address? What's the symbolism of this use of this material, for example? So it's definitely because I'm also a performance scholar. I also look at things like this as cultural events, as cultural performances. So we also study that kind of cultural phenomenon.
Thank you.
Any other sharing you would like to? Because I always interested to know more from the floor, because I don't know how people have the needs to archive something, particularly as small art groups or art organizations. What is the needs to establish or set up an archive? This motivation issues is quite important for the local practitioners, as well as for the further questions we would like to generate. So I would like to listen to more experience.
So since you say that, so can I just raise another question? Yes. So actually, previously I'm doing research on Hong Kong local contemporary fashion designers. So, but I'm now raised from Hong Kong locally. So what do you suggest me? So where I can looking for those kind of resources, so I can do the research.
For the fashion industry?
Archival, yes, from a fashion industry. So maybe any suggestion, any resources? Because I'm looking for it actually. Thank you. So I'm not talking about the cheap pound anymore. I'm talking about the contemporary fashion designers they are raised up from Hong Kong locally. Yeah, thank you.
Denise, do you have any idea?
Okay.
I'm
interested about fashion as
well.
What about Creative Hong Kong?
Creative Hong Kong, maybe the
TDC.
TDC. Yeah, TDC. They may have a directory, I think.
Yeah, Lafong. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can contact.
Interesting question. Interesting question. Keep contact with me, and try to because I'm interested as well.
Yeah, because performing art costume, that is also the field that I want to do research in.
And yes, and you reminds me actually my experience of my research trip in UK. Actually, the archives over there, because I went to visit the Rumbat, a dance company's archives. And actually, they are having a very close contact with the St. Martin's School of Design, and in particular for this fashion design and costume design. So, but I have a very good chance to engage in one of their workshops, and actually they are using the Rumbat's archives. Some of the objects, they take the objects from the archives. Yes. To from their collection, and to work with the students who are now engaging studies and research on costume and also fashion design. So I think it's a very good, it just reminds me about this occasion that I engage, and how to make use of something in the theater, and it could be contribute to the fashion and also the cultural, the creative industry nowadays.
From the because you mentioned students, I find it the best sort of manpower are actually students because especially if you get them, attach them, sort of like internship, and get them to kind of follow theatre companies, plant them there, and get them to know as much. They are very willing to do it for free because they also want to kind of like have one step into theatre students, for example. They want to have one step into the industry. And so I actually started out that way because I myself was very interested in the local scene, but there was no infrastructure, there was no internship program in my university, so I had to look for such opportunities myself. But through that, they were so willing, the theatre company I joined was so willing to kind of like, oh, okay, here's our old program, oh, this is a recording. So I got to like watch recordings that otherwise would not be publicly available. That's when I then realized, oh, actually I saw a gap there because there's no sort of archive that kind of consolidate all those private collections or individual companies. So what if I put it all together? We can sort to think about, oh, during this period, what was like the most common kind of issue? What was the political situation how did theatre emerge out of this political situation? Yeah, so use your...
So I will go to your college.
You students. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do contemporary Singaporean.
Do you try Poly University already?
Well, actually, this research project has just started, so I'm starting to approach them.
Yes, I think probably because the Poly University is the earliest educational institute starting fashion training, textile and fashion. So supposing these institutions would be the many historical sources they may keep, I think.
I had some contact with some Hong Kong design institutions.
Mm-hmm.
They already started their fashion archive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So
Good luck to you. And get help from Denise.
Okay.
About the costume design, I can share a little story because I once talked with one of the director of a book called Blackout a few years ago, published locally, which is a book interviewing designer of theatre productions, like lighting designer, set designer, and also costume designer. The editor shared a story that the most difficult, because you have to publish a book, you need images. Actually, the most difficult part about putting these materials together, the hardest material is the costume. Because a lot of costume designers, they don't have the mindset to proper record their costume. We may think that, okay, nowadays we all got mobile phone, taking photos, everything. They have photos, but the photos actually is just an image that shows the actress wearing that costume when they do the fitting. So it's nothing about production and without the lighting and everything. So actually it doesn't really reflect that costume in that production. But those costume designers, they don't mind. They just think, okay, I've designed this and then I make the record, that's it. So the problem is, when we talk about we really want to set up an archive, proper document everything, it is really important to let the designer also have the mindset or what would be the most ideal way to document your work or archive your work. I think this we may still have a lot of work to do.
So can I have a question?
Yes.
So the book you talk about.
It's Blackout. Black, the color black, and then out is OUT. So it's I'm not sure it's published by.
You know why?
Oh, you know why? I said designer. I said.
Set designer.
Yeah, so you may contact a Bernadette. She'll give you a contact, and then
We have copy in office, and actually it reminds me another story. There's another story sharing on costumes. It's because last year, last year actually, I visit the National Center for Costumes and Scenography in France. So it's a really amazing treat. You can search their online archives data at their website, and they have the costume, of course, the photos of the costumes. And also, I think they have quite a details of description of of course, the history of that particular costumes. And costume is a very complicated object that is hard to be reserved, because not talking about physically, you have to preserve it. But on the other hand, that reminds me another story when I visit the Shakespeare Group Theatre, and they also archives their costume. And it makes me really shocked that they even keep all the quotations from the designers because they have the fabric, they have to use different kinds of fabrics. And of course, they choose the final fabric, but they also document the process of how they, search all this fabric. And of course, the fabric itself contains not only the quotation, the price of the fabric, but also the details of that particular fabric. So you can chase because online you can only see the photo of the costumes, and you cannot touch it, and you don't even, if you would like to do a replica of this particular costume, or you want to remake it, somehow if you want to chase the origin of that history of the costume, you need that information and also need that data. And that's what, amazingly, of course, we don't have the expertise and also maybe the resources for that particular kinds of archives, but so it brings me another, not a problem, but it's a challenge for our for doing archives, in particular for performing arts, because even though we're talking about costume, it's a huge project, and not talking about the scenes, the sets, and also these kind of things that will cost you a lot if you want to archive it in a
technical material.
Yes, technical materials. So it's just another sharing about the.
And I think you should ask me.
Yes,
because
yes.
I have the professional knowledge, because I've been working in the fashion industry for almost 20 years.
Yeah. So we can share.
I know that, like, from step one, like creation, the moon board, everything, until the complete garments.
Yeah.
So, and also I have been doing some volunteer for textile preservation at the Heritage Museum for years.
And this is what I think William just mentioned about is for the designers, maybe they may not have that awareness of documenting the things in that details. But of course, from the case in the Shakespeare Group Theatre, because they have a long history of documenting their own productions, they will keep these things in detail.
Just if you want to take a look to the website of the Costume Museum in France, it's cncs.fr. It's really worthwhile just checking their website. You can dream of going there someday. it's really a wonderful place.
Is that called France National Ballet?
CNC.
Centre National du Costume de Scène. C'est cncs.fr. Sorry.
Well, you know what, actually it's very interesting about archive that from the history, actually is French people, they bring out this concept.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think they are very innovative for many industries.
Any other questions? So maybe we start to round up, or
I don't have any.
because we
It's so
have to
discouraging, so frustrated. We got a lot of problems rather than solutions in this section.
Yes.
But anyway, thanks so much for the sharing, Frank and useful advice for us. Even though the local situation is so difficult to deal with, and thanks very much for your contribution.
Yeah, but as a response to Veerle's comments, although we have a lot of difficulties, but don't discourage us to. Of course, I think we encounter a lot of challenges, and at the same time, I think the keywords for me is it's a collaborative practice. It's a very important keyword, and also. It makes me feel less lonely because by the time when we do this kind of archival things, not only IATC is a lonely kind of organization doing it, but of course we're not lonely because we need collaborators and we need partners from not only from our theater field, but because we also trying to have more collaboration and to receive more experience to share from the other arts discipline, other art fields. So I think it's more important for me to know that we're not alone, and there should be more experience like from Europe or from Asia that we can. And Sigmas, we always have. Okay. We have a lot of collaborators in Sigmas as well for the okay. We have a leaflets here, and there's a lot of people, in the world that we can share experience with, and I think it's very good chance to know them, and also for tomorrow's workshop. And Elvin is going to go into a deeper, I think,
it's more of a practical workshop,
practical workshop,
just to help you to kind of imagine what would the performance archive be. So I might get you to kind of do a database structure as a way to kind of translate your concept into actual. So you might start to do an inventory.
If I have no basic background about it, can I attend?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm just asking. But maybe the only requirement is that at least watch a production recently in Hong Kong. So imagine if you were to archive this recent production, how would you kind of, what categories will you have? What other information you need? Basic information in order to kind of generate a database. Use that as a kind of starting point. So our form groups here all can sit together and sort of imagine this this performance archive or performance database.
Yeah. So everyone, if you would like to make your and as an example to make your own theater productions archive, so come to the workshop tomorrow. And also we have in the afternoon we have a workshop on virtual reality. We are talking about something really high-end technology, and our speakers from Taiwan is going to share with us the experience. And before attending the workshop, we welcome you, and also it's part of the workshop actually to experience the clippings, the videos of in a virtual reality equipment, with a virtual reality equipment. So if you're interested, please come, please register. I think we still have some availability online that you can welcome you to come to the workshop tomorrow. So thank you very much, and once again, if you would like to, please fill the questionnaire for us and to give comments to us. Thank you so much. Thank you.